Welcome back to Zach Going Fire. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about budgeting apps. Do you use a budgeting app? Why would you use a budgeting app? You can just do your budget with pen and paper, or you can use your own spreadsheet. You may want to use a budgeting app to help track your expenses. There are very many different reasons that people use budgets, but I put them into two separate categories. There's budgeting so that you can track expenses and look at where you might be going overboard in certain categories, look at where you can cut expenses and save more money. And then there's budgeting so that you can project out into the future and see where you might be able to spend more money. So another term for budgeting is a spending plan. It's not just about cutting back, it's about deciding where you want your dollars to go. And budgeting apps can help you with that. So I have 14 different apps I'm going to cover today, and I've done a deep dive into each one of those. Let me put that up on the screen. So here's the 14 budgeting apps that I did a review on. The top two I will reveal at the end. There are a couple of apps that a lot of other YouTubers have not really commented on, but we have Countabout, Quicken Simplifi, Pocket Guard, Tiller, Every Dollar, Rocket Money, CoPilot, Origin, Monarch, YNAB, Pocketsmith, and then one last one here that I wanted to throw in at the end. These are in order by annual cost. A lot of these offer monthly subscriptions, but if I were to pay for one of these, I would do it by annual cost. And some of these have different pros and cons. I'll kind of dive into that. There's not any one that would be best for every person. Before I dive into the budgeting apps, if you're new here, I'm a truck driver. I'm 44 and I'm planning on retiring early this year. I have been able to come back from bankruptcy about 10 years ago in 2016, and I've been saving and investing, and I used to be a financial advisor. Later this year, my wife and I will start to travel nomadically, so I'm not promoting anything here. So first thing I'm going to do is reveal how much each of these cost on an annual basis, and we'll go in order of how expensive they are. At the end, I'll come back and do a summary and tell you which ones I think would be best for different kinds of people depending on what point in your fire journey you're on. So Countabout is going to be $55 per year. So that's a really good deal. Let me also say that I did not try to cover every single budgeting app. These are just some of the more popular ones, some of the ones that I was interested in trying personally. So with each one of these, I actually set up an account and put my financial information in and tried to figure out what my budget in the app would look like and how easy it would be to use on an ongoing basis. So that being said, that's why I wanted to give Countabout a try at $55 a year. That's a really great price. Quicken Simplifi, it's under the old Quicken that's been around since the 90s. $72 a year is very affordable for a very robust budgeting app. They've thought about just about everything that you need. They made the Simplifi version much lighter than the full Quicken version, which is more for full accounting if you ran a business or something like that. Then we have Pocket Guard at $75. And I did see somewhere that some people were reporting that when you go to cancel that, there's offers sometimes that you can get like a lifetime membership of this for like $170 or $150. That'd be a good deal. Then you have Tiller. It's very popular for people who like spreadsheets, $79 a year. It gives you full control of the data and comes into Google Sheets so that you can manipulate it however you like. It just pulls the transaction information in from your financial accounts. Every Dollar by Dave Ramsey, very popular amongst anyone who follows Dave Ramsey. It's $80 and it's very straightforward. It's just trying to make sure that you budget for every dollar every month, but it's very much so constricting and wanting to hold your hand. Rocket Money, it's very popular, very easy to use, great interface, $84. Then we start getting into what I would call a little bit more expensive territory. CoPilot is only on Apple devices. So if you have a PC or or Android devices, CoPilot's not going to work for you. Origin is at $99. Origin was very good, having a lot of features, but they also try to put a little bit more extra into it, offering things like doing your taxes, financial advice, investing. So if you like having everything of your financial life wrapped up into one ecosystem, then you might want to look at Origin. Monarch is at $100 a year. You can frequently find a sign-up offer to get the first year at $50 or $49. YNAB is $109. It's similar to Every Dollar in that you can really budget and save money, and it can help you get better control of your money. And it has lots and lots of lessons in there. I'm teaching you how to do sinking funds and plan for larger expenses. Then you have Pocketsmith, and it's $120 a year, but I wouldn't go with Pocketsmith just because when I show you the final app that I'm going to review, I think that would take Pocketsmith's place. So even though Pocketsmith is for budgeting and budgeting alone, it might be one of the best, but for $120 a year, I don't think it's worth it. So let me show you some of the footage that I got while I was looking into these apps. So starting with Countabout, I really wanted this to work at $55 per year. This is a great way to have a budgeting app that if I could get it to work. And for some people, I think you can get it to work. It brings in all of my transactions from my accounts. Problem is that it wants me to approve every single one of them. So I go to pending approval. I've got 262 transactions to approve. That's a lot more work than I would like. Also, if I click on, for example, reports, it doesn't automatically show me a report. If I wanted to see like a trend, I have to tell it exactly like what I'm looking for. You can just kind of see how it's not very pretty or polished compared to some of the other apps that we're looking at. If you don't have a very complicated financial situation, or if you don't care, that it looks pretty or not, then Countabout could work for you. But for me, it wouldn't be worth saving that money when you could just do a spreadsheet yourself for all the work that you're going to have to do. I feel like you might as well do that. Pocket Guard is great if you don't have a lot of things going on with your finances. If you have a simple budget and you don't have a lot of internal transfers between accounts, it would be great to use. For me personally, I've got a lot of transfers for different sinking funds and credit card payments and such. And so it looks like I've spent almost $9,000, but those are transfers and I have no way to remove it out of this pie chart. So it wouldn't work for me, but if you have more of a simple situation, then it could be great for you to use. Okay, so with Pocket Guard, I did not like that I cannot make a rule that says every time I go to a place like Wawa, if it's like under a certain amount, then that's not auto and transport. Their system thinks that if you go to a gas station, then you're doing auto and transport. But oftentimes I might just be picking up snacks. If it's like less than $15, then that's me picking up something to eat. If I get gas, it's going to be more than $15. So there's no way to set that as a rule in Pocket Guard. Simplifi does allow that, and many of the other more complicated apps do allow that. So in Simplifi, I can say if it's Circle K, if the expense is less than or greater than a certain amount, I can say if it's less than $15, then I can put that as a category as groceries. So with Origin Finance, the first thing you see when I log in is a pop-up that wants me to file taxes. I'm not really trying to do my taxes right now, so I don't need a pop-up advertising that. You can see it over here, and then over here on the left, you have all the other services that Origin is trying to sell you: brokerage, investing, estate planning, taxes, financial planner. The app is very nice and very polished, and you can do everything with this app that you can do with Monarch or CoPilot. The problem is for me, I just want an app that just does the budget. So I would not not keep this, especially for it being $100 a year. So with every dollar Dave Ramsey's app, there is a lot of work you have to do with it initially to set it up, and there is a learning curve. You're looking at the transactions that I've already tracked into a certain category. I'm not going to click on my new transactions because that shows the account number. And you can see in the summary here where I've put these in. You have to tell it to start with like what each transaction is and what the budget is for each part of your monthly spending. So if you need this kind of hand-holding, it's great to get out of debt with, and when you're first starting to budget. But once you've already developed your budget on your own and you know how to manage your month-to-month and year-to-year budgets, it is a little bit constricting working within the Dave Ramsey budgeting system. For example, I have some travel coming up that is for later this year, and I had to put down a deposit on it, and so when that transaction comes in, that's kind of hard to manage within this system without creating a new category and making a budget for it, or just deleting that out of my budget completely, in which case I might forget about it. But yeah, the system for every dollar, it is kind of expensive for what it is, but I do like how it can help you stay focused if that's what you need. Okay, with Tiller, as you can see here, I've got a lot of transactions and I have not even uploaded or connected all of my accounts. I did go ahead and clear out the description and the full description columns just to hide my account numbers. I would need to go through and update a lot of the categories because it labeled a lot of these as miscellaneous more so than some of the other budgeting apps did. So I could make rules for that in the auto category thing, but that's a lot of work and I am trying to avoid doing all that work. When you first log into Tiller, you're going to get a screen that looks like this. It looks pretty nice for being a spreadsheet. You can hide this, you can adjust anything, and basically the data belongs to you. It was fairly easy to connect all of my different accounts, the ones that I've tried to connect so far. I do like how you can see cleanly your assets and liabilities. I also like that you can adjust the different kinds of categories that it has, and I was surprised that it actually has a fairly decent mobile application. I wasn't aware that Tiller would have that. It's in beta right now and it's better than I expected it to be. So if I were to be using Tiller, I would definitely have to clean it up a lot and make this bigger like this because I can't stand seeing all those small numbers. It's just not as polished looking as some of the other budgeting apps that are in the same price range. All right, so we're looking at the demo mode for CoPilot. It does look kind of polished, but not as polished as I would have hoped for, being what it costs compared to other apps, budgeting apps of around the same price range. I'm not a big fan of how small the fonts are, and I didn't see a way to change that. I also don't like that I can't move around the different widgets here. I didn't see any way to collapse this side panel here. So I had no way to hide these credit card numbers here. That's why I'm in the demo mode. So these are not my card numbers. So compare this look. This is my dashboard for Monarch Money. Monarch Money is not running on a native app. It's actually running in Safari. And so you would think that it wouldn't look as good or as polished, but in my opinion it does. The font is nicer to look at. I can easily move around these different widgets on the home page, and I can easily collapse and expand this side panel here. Another thing that I like about Monarch that I did not seem to be able to find in CoPilot was this AI assistant here. When you go in here and you can ask it all sorts of things. So that's really useful. So I also really liked the way that Monarch shows the cash flow and the spending. To me, all of this looks a lot better than the way it looks over in CoPilot. If you go to the cash flow here and this is their demo mode, so it should look better than this. If you look at the categories, it just doesn't look nearly as nice when you compare that to like the cash flow here, the transactions. For my money, I would go with Monarch. Another thing that Monarch allows you to do is add a two-player mode. Your significant other you can add so that you can assign transactions to different people, and you can each have your own login and review. Whereas CoPilot, being that it is an Apple product, it's designed just around the one Apple user. So I was able to add my Apple card to the CoPilot app, but not Mindy's Apple card to the CoPilot app. Whereas Monarch, you can add either of those. So if I had to choose between the two, I would definitely go with Monarch, even though I did have higher hopes for CoPilot. Okay, so we're looking at Rocket Money and some of the transactions that I have had. I wanted to show you how you can edit the categories for Rocket Money, and this is very important compared to some of the other budgeting apps. Let's take this racetrack charge on February 6th for $2.88. That's labeled as auto and transport, and I'm happy that it automatically categorizes that as such. If that was what it would normally be, that'd be great. But I know that that was grocery, so I can type in grocery and add. It pops up here. I can add a rule for that. And I know that all of my racetrack transactions that are under a certain amount, so I can make it less than $15, and I'm going to count that as grocery, so I can hit continue, and it's going to apply that to the transaction there. Save that rule. But then anytime I go to racetrack for under $15, it will apply that as grocery. So now I want to come back to the list and look at the apps I promised I would reveal at the end here. This first one is called Wisfi. This app is free. They do not sell your data. They do not try to advertise to you anything. They do have plans. It's kind of a newer thing. They do have plans in the future to try to offer other services, but they're planning on never charging for just the budgeting app. My problem with the app right now is that it is only on the phone. They do have plans to bring it to the desktop in the future, and with it being only on the phone, another problem I have with it is that it does not automatically categorize transactions. All of the rest of these apps work on both my phone and on my computer, with the exception of the last one. The last one, I'll go ahead and reveal that now. That is my favorite. Projection Lab isn't really a budgeting app, but the whole reason that you do a budget is so that sometimes you can use your budget to project out into the future what your needs are going to be. So when you're talking about your budget for your day-to-day life, your paycheck to paycheck or month to month, you need to know your income and expenses. And with Projection Lab, you can put those in and manipulate those to whatever kind of detail you need to do, and it can help you account for inflation. You can use it for $0, but it won't save your data. At a yearly cost, it's $129, or if you like it as I do, you can pay the lifetime fee of $1,200, which I've gone ahead and done. So the reason I bring up Projection Lab is that compared to Pocketsmith, the next most expensive thing on the list at $120, Pocketsmith tries to help you with your day-to-day budget and project out into the future on a calendar basis, month to month, and get really nitty-gritty into the details. So I really liked Pocketsmith like that. I can nerd out on those numbers and planning all day long, but then it's not a full financial plan like you would get with Projection Lab to help you plan for retirement 30 or 40 years out into the future and looking at your different retirement accounts and how they're treated with taxes and everything like that, I would go with Projection Lab versus Pocketsmith for that. And then just use one of these other options for your month-to-month budget. And then finally, I will reveal this last one here, CFO Sylvia. This is a newer app. I believe it's the newest one of all of these. It's based on AI, and it uses AI to help you see your budget. It does a great job at showing your investments and your portfolio. So it's free right now. It was just acquired by another company. So, when you have that kind of thing that's free and seems to offer a pretty good service, you never know whether or not that's going to stay with you. But it's worth trying now as long as it's free. They're not really trying to sell you other things, but the AI, if you want some outside advice, it does chime in with your portfolio if you link your investment accounts to it, and it will tell you things to think about considering changing in your investments if you're okay with that kind of thing. But you can just ignore it, as I do, for investing purposes. So who are these apps for? I really liked Tiller. Tiller was great for anybody that likes spreadsheets. If you need help with getting out of debt and you need help with overspending and things like that, then I would either go with Every Dollar or YNAB. If you want the most modern feel and the easiest to use, I would go with Monarch Money or Rocket Money. Rocket Money is really the cleanest and easiest to use of all of these, but it's not a full feature one. If you want more of a full feature one, you're going to want Quicken Simplifi, which is pretty good for its price, or again, go with Monarch at $100 a year. For me personally, what am I going to be doing? I will use Projection Lab to budget way out into the future, and then for my month-to-month usage, I'll probably go back to just using a free spreadsheet. Thank you for watching, and until next time, let's continue to drive towards financial freedom.